Welcome to Shink About It, a podcast dedicated to the growth mindset. My guest today is Mr. Aaron Steffey, co-founder of Propeller Bonds. He joins me to visit about overcoming struggle, the benefits of partnership, and shares a unique, almost surprising success story during the pandemic. All right, so joining me today is Aaron Steffey, who is the co-founder of Propeller Bonds, a new Insurtech play in the transactional bond space, doing some new and exciting things. And Aaron and I were actually introduced by a mutual connection a couple weeks ago and have been in conversation about how Propeller can join with Ins Group. And we've actually just formalized an alliance where now we are working together. Ins Group's taking advantage of the unique and new technologies that Propeller has put together. So I asked Aaron on so we can unpack a little bit of the history behind Propeller, where you're from and where we're going and how you're differentiating. So thanks so much for joining me today, Aaron.
Yeah, well said. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
No, it's my pleasure. So I like to open up with a certain question, just kind of get the conversation going. And the first one, what interesting or unexpected source of information do you like to take in? It can be industry specific, something about the insurance or surety industry, or completely off topic. But what is a podcast or a journal or a blog, something that you enjoy and you feel like gives you some unique perspective?
Yeah, it's not, that is a good question. There's several of them. So I've been a podcast consumer. I would say an early podcast consumer. Like I've been listening to podcasts, I think longer than most. So the Joe Rogan podcast, I've always listened to just for entertainment value, just because I know he's kind of controversial with some people, but I specifically just like the breadth of guests he has, that it can just like really mix up and so much variety. Gary Vaynerchuk, I like to hear just for some kind of inspiring marketing ideas. And when I need something to kind of light a fire under me on a certain day, he's pretty good at that. And then the Barry How I Built This, I like a lot, and some business podcasts. But I listen to a lot of business podcasts. That's probably the thing that I consume the most, and it's just easy to consume. I've finally gotten to the point where I can actually go on a run to a podcast as opposed to music, and actually retain some of the information. So those are some of the things I absorb.
So that's a lot of content to take in. Is it, you see people who have like prolific commutes and they're big podcast people because they're in the car an hour plus each way. And then you talk about running, and I haven't quite gotten there. I've tried to run and listen, and I find like that I don't retain a lot of it. But so where do you find the headspace to be able to take in that stuff and really process it?
So it's, I actually, you know how a lot of people maybe fall asleep to television at night. I've kind of fall asleep to a podcast at night a lot of times. So maybe like an hour before bed, I'll do it. And it actually, depending on the podcast, it can kind of be soothing. And just like, usually, your mind is pretty clear at that point in time. And then also I don't have a prolific commute. I actually live in the city of Philadelphia. And so my commute when I'm in the office is walking 5 minutes to the L and hopping on the subway to go downtown. But that's actually a great time to throw headphones in and everything. And everyone on the train is always kind of minding their own business anyway.
Sure.
So I actually, that would be my commute, and I can get, 30 minutes in at that point in time.
We really miss out on the joys of public transit here in Houston, right? I mean, there are buses, but we don't have trains to speak of. Everybody's in their car burning up fossil fuels just for, one person to get someplace.
Yeah, everyone's got their big yard and their own castle. And it's, I think we're all going to miss out for a while. I mean, we haven't been taking it due to the coronavirus and everything. But there is something I don't know what it is. There is something energizing about just like such a wide array of people from all different backgrounds and whatnot, just like kind of piling in to go to work in the morning. There is a certain energy that some of those kind of like cosmopolitan cities can provide.
Yeah, that's right. So how did you come to be in our business, in the insurance and surety business? Where did your story start?
So I could go all the way back to like 5 years old. So I grew up in an insurance household. I remember, typing out mailers on envelopes from a typewriter and actually having to like lick them shut and,
Nice.
and mailing envelopes early on. So I kind of grew up in an insurance agency. My mom and dad started an independent insurance agency. We're primarily Erie insurance agents, which if a lot of your listeners are in Texas, they may not know much about them. They're mostly in the Midwest and the East Coast. They're a big regional carrier though. And
Okay.
so I grew up around it. When I went to college, I swore I would never work in insurance, as many people have before. But after graduation, I graduated in 2009 from Ole Miss, and job prospects were a little weird then. We had just kind of had the 2008 collapse, and it's not to say that there wasn't jobs, but the pickings were a little slim. And so in trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, I told myself, well, look, I'll go back home for a year. I haven't been home for a while. I went to school far away, and I'll just work in insurance for a year and just kind of see what happens. And
just a year. Well, just
yeah,
1 year and then I'm out.
Yeah, this is a story that can be retold thousands of times by many others.
Yeah.
But I found, I think like a lot of people, I found my niche, and I found what I like to do. What I don't like to do, I certainly found very quickly. And that is one of the cool things about insurance, is just like there is kind of a place for everybody if you kind of just like play to your strengths. And so I found mine was mostly on like sales, business development. At the time, no one really was thinking about acquiring agencies, or people were, and they were way smarter than I was. And so but over time, I've started to get into some of the acquisition space and whatnot, which was really fun for me. But yeah, that's kind of my insurance story.
So where was the spark for the idea that became Propeller? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so working in the agency and living in Philly, I've always just been interested in technology. I did an MBA program at Villanova out here, which is in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and during that time, just like I think I became a lot more innovative. Like I always tell people, the biggest thing I took away from that program wasn't from although my professors were great and everything, it was really just my peers within it from all these different industries and big companies, small companies, different types of roles. And I became a ton more interested in innovation during that time, and kind of being a part of the change, as opposed to just waiting for, maybe a carrier to tell me, oh, we got new technology you can use now. And so I wanted to tackle a specific line of insurance that was easy to underwrite, that is a real nuisance, and that nobody pays attention to. I think I told you this on our call, I think like privately when we were talking about working together. Everyone runs to, business insurance, and we're going to automate, this line or that line. That's a huge ticket item. But then they ignore kind of stuff like surety, which are, or flood insurance and things that are real pain points to agencies. And so I met my technology partners actually through networking. We work with Axe Group out of Australia. They're actual, partners in Propeller. And Chris Colger, who is my cousin, we actually brought him on after 10 years at Chubb, and he would kind of always, we would get together in holidays and whatnot, and he would tell me the pain points from the carrier side of surety. So as I was building this, I reached out to him. He's now been a full-time employee of ours for the last 3 months. And I think he's really enjoying, being a part of that change as well. So that's just kind of some of the high-level overview of where that all comes from.
So I think when I introduced you, I said co-founder of Propeller, but that's not accurate, is it? You're the founder of the company.
Yeah. So, me with our technology partners at Axe Group. I see a real value in partnering with the technology. I've always heard, you hear kind of horror stories either way. Either you partner with the technology and they get way more equity in the company than you'd like to give up, but they are footing a huge technology build. Or the opposite end of the spectrum is every time your product fails or you need upgrades or anything, you have to go raise money and then you become beholden to like, I can't move forward until I continue to pay this technology build. We went with the former, which was, we'll give equity, a sizable chunk of equity in the company in order to get this built efficiently, quickly. And then, we essentially then have our tech partners on a retainer. So I always, when I sit through these demos with our brokers, I always tell them, that what they see today, or any day they see Propeller, it's the worst day of Propeller's life. Because it gets better every single month. And we just came out with version 1.3, 1.4 is at the end of this month, and it includes like a chat feature, a couple other slick little features, and it'll just continue to get better. And we don't have to go raise money from venture capital to improve our product. And that's
an interesting decision that you made, and it's already a beautiful, very slick, easy to use product that you have. So it's exciting to hear that it's only going to get better. But that was a strategic decision that you made to have your technology partner literally invested in the success of Propeller, not just available to you or a vendor to you, but literally invested. And you've been pleased with that decision as going forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're big, and I've talked to you again about this as far as like, the potential of partnering with our brokers and agency partners in the future. Anytime I think you can partner with someone that's directly invested in your success is a no-brainer. And if they're a vital part of the business, especially. And I'm seeing that, even in like multifamily insurance now and multifamily investments, you see that kind of with like property managers and insurance agents that also invest in projects. And then everyone kind of has, some skin in the game here to like make everything move efficiently. So we've been very happy.
I was talking to one of my counterparts at a large firm that we're very friendly with, and had that conversation just about alignment, about all of the stakeholders being aligned, whether it has to do with colleagues, carrier partners, surety partners like Propeller, just being aligned on what we're trying to achieve and how much more powerful that is. And it sounds really simple, but matters even down to how we compensate people and how we recognize and reward success. Do all of those incentives line up with what the goals of the firm are? So I appreciate your take on that. So let me ask you, day to day with what you're doing, what do you find the most energizing in your role at Propeller? What turns you on the most and gets you out of bed and gets you eager to take on the day?
I'm an agent, and so talking to other agents is fun for me in general. It's been we chose to launch a startup, and our original launch date was April 1st, which was like the crux of this pandemic, and we pushed it back. Actually, we wound up pushing it back like a couple months in order to just understand what the heck was happening. Turns out that there's a lot of things with the coronavirus that's actually helped our business, fortunately. But I think that like talking with agents, being able to give them the product, show them the value of the product. The fact that it's free to agents and brokers has been really cool. So I think typically what I've gathered from an agency side is, it's either your carrier's presenting you with some new technology or new widget they've built, which you may or may not be excited about. A lot of times, and I don't want to just down on carriers, but a lot of times it's a very similar type of technology for each one. And it's not something truly new and innovative. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is maybe there's like tech startups that don't truly solve real business problems. They solve, a small kind of tiny thing of a problem, but they're going to charge you 150 a month per user or 200, and you kind of don't see the ROI there.
Right.
And so I say all that to say that what excites me is being able to kind of align all of the value propositions of using us and kind of getting that aha moment on the Zoom call with them, of just, like, oh, it's free and it solves this, and the billing, you white label it for me, and so like once it's all put together, it's really powerful. And it's about a product that, before the call, they were probably like, oh, I have to get on the surety demo. They just weren't excited about. So
That's fair.
yeah, that's pretty cool. And I get to travel the country now via Zoom.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I had a conversation with one of my partners earlier today about how we feel, we're a Houston-based firm, and I mean, we're the largest closely held private firm in the state of Texas. So we've got a presence here, but we've really seen some geographical barriers come down because everybody now is just as far away from you as your computer screen is at this point. I mean, we might as well be in the same room, and you're in Philadelphia. So it's pretty interesting. You said something that I'd like to unpack just a little bit. And you said that the coronavirus or the pandemic, everybody being at home, has actually been helpful to the business. Can you get into that a little bit? How has it been helpful for you getting off the ground?
We were already going to be very much on the forefront of technology when it comes to this space, which in a lot of ways isn't hard to do, but we were going to be, sometimes I wonder if we would have been too far ahead where we'd have to fight down a lot of barriers. So initially, we were only planning to launch in about 20 states total, because there was only 20 states that accepted electronic signature, electronic notary, electronic seals, all that kind of stuff. And then what coronavirus did is completely blew that out of the water, and all 50 states started accepting overnight. And it was like, oh, well, here we are. We have it ready for you. And then secondly, the brokers that deal with a lot of this stuff, they were, a lot of this was, bonds were mailed. They were actually stamped with a seal. They were, notarized in-house, that kind of stuff, mailed to the customer. And it really shined a light on, I think, just all paper processes or all manual processes in every business, when you're not all huddled around a printer that you have access to, and you're at home, and the customer needs it electronically and quickly and efficiently. And so it was just kind of like, well, wow, we just, this huge thing happened, and we just emerged from the ashes with, what we think is the perfect tool for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, interesting how, in some ways, the timing couldn't have been better to launch the company. You told me an interesting story on the phone when we first engaged about Ins Group's and Propeller's partnership, about, because of the digital technology, having a contractor on the way to the obligee's office, filling out the questionnaire on the phone, and then having a digital certificate immediately that they were able to take in and use. I mean, what a game changer that is.
Yeah.
Both for the customer, and like you said, this stuff can be burdensome for the agency. This isn't big revenue money, but you do it to take care of your clients. And, very often we're spending more money to overnight something or courier something to a client than there is revenue in it for the firm. Yeah. But it's just kind of, you called it nuisance business. And in many ways it is to both the agency and to the customer. So to have an outlet where they can procure it themselves online, pay with a credit card, which is a differentiator, and get that electronic signed, stamped document ready to rock and roll and turn it in, really is a differentiator. Very cool for you guys. So, the concept behind this podcast really is about growth, about the growth mindset. And it seems to me, that a lot of growth for an individual or for an organization comes with struggle, that they kind of go hand in hand. You struggle through something to climb that hill, and then you reach the top of the hill. And so what I'm interested in is, I'll say what single struggle, but you certainly can give me more than that. But my question is, what single struggle did you have to go through to get to where you are that resulted in significant growth? Something you really had to overcome in order to propel, no pun
Yeah,
intended.
there you go.
But
you meant to do that.
in order to move Propeller forward, what
Yeah.
hurdle did you have to overcome?
That's a perfect question. So in doing this, we had this great idea. We set out, we talked to different agencies. We kind of pinpointed all the issues, talked to several carriers. We had a paper partner that was going to provide us paper. And I won't say the name, but very last minute, well, not very last minute, but sort of last minute, they basically said, we don't want to do this transactional surety. That's not really what we've ever set up to be. We really just want to stick with contract, which is what we know best. And they said, it'd be better for you to find another paper company. And at that point in time, we had started to build things out, for them. And we were just like, oh my gosh, this is, we have to start all over and find a new carrier. We have to go pitch to them, show them why it's good, that kind of thing. So
That's
the
a real
very
shot
first
to the
carrier, yeah, it was just those are the moments I found though, where those are the quitting moments. Like,
Yep.
Those are the moments where tons of people quit, is like this total devastation where it's like, this is a horrible idea. We're never going to get this off the ground. And there's so many of those throughout the process where it's so easy to and I thought about it. I'm just like, what are we even, surety? Like, we're trying to
go back to my agency. Just go back to the agency
we're
business.
trying to do all this for $100 bonds. Like, it's never going to take off. And the very first carrier we asked after that just like laughed us out of the room, basically. But the beautiful story about that, the one that just kind of didn't, want anything to do with us, recently has contacted us and asked to be a part of the platform.
Oh, great.
And so, and whether we work with them in the future or not, I'm not sure. But it just was like such a, that's like a horrible moment. But then it was such a validation recently to receive that call. And they were very gracious, honestly. They were just like, we just kind of didn't understand what you were pitching. I think, you spoke to the wrong person at the time. And we would love to help you out. And we would love for our paper to be a part of the platform and that kind of thing. And like I said, I don't know what it'll ever come of it. But it's just like, it was so rewarding to get that call where it's like, I do remember just a little over a year ago when it was like, oh, what are you doing? You're white labeling this. Right. Agents don't, and they would flat out say, agents don't care about this stuff. Like, good luck getting a broker on the phone that even wants to talk about surety, like about transactional surety.
Well, and safe to say you've had success doing that.
Yeah.
But what a great moment of validation, and that struggle resulted in huge growth. Good for you. Yeah. Let me ask you this, for people listening who may not know the difference between contract and transactional surety, can you give just a quick rundown of when you're talking about transactional surety, what problem is it that you're solving?
It is, generally speaking, a license and permit bond to just perform business. So something that would be deemed transactional is actually probably a bad term. It's a vague term that we use. Commercial surety is more in line with it, but not all commercial surety is transactional. So you could probably be more specific by affixing a dollar amount to it and saying, anything that can be instant issued is completely transactional. But I mean, we do large commercial surety to some degree. We actually do contract surety up to $500,000 pretty instantly. So the definition of what's transactional in the past is being changed, I think, by us, because we're making a lot of bonds transactional that weren't. And we're integrating, credit check right into it, where you would have to pick up the phone, leave a voicemail for your underwriter at your carrier that you need to run credit and get approval. And so I think but to get back to answering your question more direct is what we deem it as is license and permit bonds that are set up in order to perform business, and they're required all over the place in every state, municipality, town, etc. And a lot of it centers around contracting and construction. A lot of it centers around trucking, alcohol, tobacco. There's a lot of bonds you need that basically say, if you don't follow the rules and do the right thing, this bond pays the state.
Well, so much legal action involves bonding as well, right?
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that. We actually performed a probate bond this morning for about $400,000 in bond penalty. So that's not a transactional bond, but we made it, darn near transactional because of how swift the process was, and the broker emailed and personally thanked us afterward. And I mean, we'll get much more bonding work from them now that we've just shown them what we can do. So it's really getting those first couple wins under your belt. But yeah, lawyers need appeal. This was actually not a probate bond, an appeal bond. But there's probate bonds, there's injunction bonds. Actually, in Harris County in Texas, every time as a plaintiff you file a lawsuit, you need to take $1,000 down for an injunction bond.
Right.
That's
Well,
always
don't tell
been
anybody
done.
about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we won't.
So just a couple more, and I'll give you back. I appreciate you've been so gracious with your time today. I would put you solidly in the Insurtech space. Do you agree with that description? I mean, you guys are an Insurtech company.
Yeah, I would. I think the one differentiator though is that we're built by combination of insurance people and tech people. Whereas I think within the Insurtech world, you often find there's a lot of tech people that just see a big pie and want to build a product. And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier, where there's a lot of tech plays that really don't solve true business problems for insurance agents. And so I think that's one, you're right, we're an Insurtech, but we really are an Insurtech,
No, that's a good point. So what do you think the outlook is for the Insurtech space overall? And everybody likes to use the word disruption, and we're going to disrupt the traditional insurance distribution channels, and everything's going to change. And, we are seeing disruption in personal insurance. That's been going on for forever. I mean, the Insurtechs, I think there's a lot with Hippo and Lemonade, although if you've been following the news, Lemonade's not sounding so great right now. But there's a lot of Insurtech in the personal space, and I think more middle market personal than private client, which is where we have a outstanding private client practice. We don't have much of a presence in the lower middle market. You hear a lot about getting into the BOP space, the small business space. But what's your take on how disruptive Insurtech plays will be, and kind of when? Just looking for your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't think disruption is the right word. So we are very agent focused for a reason. We could have sold our bonds direct to consumer, which a lot of people do, and gone about it that way. But I think broker buy-in is definitely needed, because if brokers don't buy into technology and adopt different technologies, I think there could potentially be disruption. But massive disruption is also I think it's pretty difficult to attain, because you really have to sustain for such a long period of time. I mean, these carriers that have been around for 100 years plus, decades, I mean, you can disrupt a space by, capturing, I guess, a piece of a pie. But what I always find is selling direct is always what I think typically people define as disruption, disrupting the agent. and
Right.
disrupting the carrier potentially by going direct.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, as far as like selling BOPs direct, like a Cover Wallet or Next Insurance, I mean, I've talked to people there, they've had success, but ultimately Cover Wallet was acquired by Aon, but I don't see it really. I think maybe on small BOPs, but I think most stuff is still relationship driven. I don't think AI is quite good enough yet to really guide someone through the purchase experience and with all the nuances of small commercial. Um, I think you can do it with easier to underwrite products, kind of like surety, or flood, where it's one peril. We need the dwelling amount of your home, the location of your home, and it's one peril, and that's it. But for some of the stuff that's really complex, I think it's hard to disrupt. I think the disruptors would maybe more so be coming from outside industries through, like I just read Morgan Stanley partnered with, 3 of the top brokers in the world to sell private client insurance to all of their financial clients. Like that could be a game changer for private client.
Yep.
If Fidelity and everyone gets into that, then that could be so. Like I think that's what I fear more is less disruption from technology right now and more disruption from other outside industries coming into insurance. You read about like Tesla, getting into auto insurance, stuff like that.
Right.
That actually concerns me more. And if they're powered by technology, then that can be scary.
I keep one eye on Amazon.
Yeah, that
I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
if Jeff Bezos sees that there's any fat in the insurance distribution model and wants to disrupt it, he could. I mean,
Mhm.
you could go into the Amazon app and start buying insurance from Amazon Insurance direct to consumer. I mean, there's
Mhm.
state regulations and other hurdles. We know about those types of things. But in theory, if he wanted to do that or Amazon wanted to do that, I mean, I don't I don't want to be competing with Amazon for auto insurance. So I think you
Yeah.
make a great point. So let me ask you this: we know where Propeller came from and where you are right now. Where does Propeller go next? What's the future look like?
Yeah, so we actually just had a LinkedIn post today. We just went live in Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida are
Congrats.
next. Thank you. Yeah, we wrote that appeal bond I mentioned earlier was actually in Tennessee, and so we're kind of going state by state, partnering with brokers, talking to someone in Columbus, Ohio right now, and another in Kansas City. Um, we're being strategic in our approach, so we're trying to partner with the right people, not the most people, and again go state by state, building out our bond library. And I think eventually we want to allow our agencies the opportunity to partner with us and be more strategic with us and kind of build something that hasn't been built before. That's all honestly our ultimate goal. So that's kind of what we're doing is just hacking away at it for now, improving technology where we can and making mistakes and trying to jump on them and correct them and rectify them as fast as possible.
Well, I love that idea of every day that you've seen us is the worst day because we're only
Yeah.
improving. We're only improving from here. I think is great. So my last question, and I have a little bit of fun with this one, is I'm always interested in what's in a name and where did the name Propeller come from? How did you arrive at that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So it actually I wish I had like a sexier story for you, but initially we were going to call it Surety because Axe Group, our technology
Ah,
partners, they have a platform called Accelerator, and which is what our business runs on. And so we were going to call it Surety, and thought long and hard, weren't really keen on any specific idea. And we actually worked with a marketing agency called the Reverie out of Australia. I think they're out of Melbourne. And the marketing agency came up with it, and it was like their first go around. And we were like, wow, we love that. It's simple. It kind of has a message, and it's fun and playful, and it looks like a tech company, but it's also, I think, simple and scalable. So that's kind of where we were going with it. And then, fast forward, like we realized how much it did. I mean, we wound up doing the white labeling for all of our agents and brokers, and kind of went away from trying to build a brand. So
I guess that's
we
true.
have this I think we have kind of a cool brand, but we white label all of our products for our agents and brokers, and make it look like them, sort of the Shopify model. And so, we don't even get to show off our Propeller brand too much.
That's actually really interesting. Well, they nailed it. I think it's really good branding. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy you are building out this exciting, young venture, and wish you every success.
Can I ask you a question before we wrap this up?
Yes, go ahead.
How do you feel about what the Astros did in the World Series? Fair game or not?
Well,
I see the jersey behind you, and I know I'm going to get a homer answer, but
no. Here's my homer answer is, if you can't win any of your home games, I mean, you have Game 7 at home, and you can't win it. We won all of our games in Washington. We won none of our games here in Houston. I mean, if you can't win one at home, I don't think you deserve the ring. You're talking about the 2019 World Series, right?
Yeah, in the I see. Gotcha. Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is, I mean, you can call me a homer. Maybe I'm more severe because I am a homer, right? I think it's a real shame. I think it's a real shame. Everything that you read, all the statisticians out there say that they gained virtually zero advantage over the season by cheating. And what I've seen is they tracked all the trash can beats and what the outcome of the pitch was. And they actually found that the take rate when it was a breaking ball was not significantly higher when there was an audible sound from the dugout. Mm-hmm. The takeaway that I've consistently seen, and if you've seen something else, feel free to share it with me. I've got a delete button. It said that, it really had no material impact on them winning the division, making the playoffs. They cheated during the playoffs. As I understand it, there's still some debate on if they cheated actually during the World Series. Mm-hmm. But whether they did or didn't, to me, the whole thing is tainted. And it's even worse, Aaron. If you didn't have to cheat to win, and you did it, and you gained no real advantage, you can say all you want, well, they would have won it all anyway. And I actually think they would have. They had a fantastic team. Our road record was unbelievable. Yankees fans can be quiet. They couldn't score any runs on our pitching.
I must say that I am a Yankees fan. So,
well, we should have opened with this, and it would have been a much shorter session on the podcast. But no, I mean, the Yankees couldn't score on us during the league championship series. Now, maybe if they knew what pitches were coming, they would have done a little bit better. That would be
the argument. That would be the counterpoint.
That's the argument. And that is the problem. And that is 100% fair counterpoint, because, and you can say everybody's doing it. I don't care. It was such a huge thing for this city, right after Hurricane Harvey. Like, I got flooded. My house got completely wiped out in Hurricane Harvey. And a lot of people less fortunate than I am lost everything with no hope of really recovering it. Right. And it was such an uplifting thing that the Astros were so good, and to watch them go on that run. My wife and son and I were in this tiny little apartment that we were lucky to be able to get, because apartments were going like hotcakes, and that's where I watched the World Series. And it was just such a depressing time with such an uplift. And then to find out that it's tainted. Would they have won it all anyway? I think so. But
of course you do.
But that in many ways almost makes it worse. Like, you did all this, you sold your integrity for no return. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, there's an important lesson there in and of itself, I guess. But
I'll tell you this, and then I know that you don't want to talk about this all day long, but so I've got a 5-year-old son who is I say he's a fan of the Astros. I don't know that to be true. I know
Mm-hmm.
that he loves that I love the Astros, right? When we watch games together, he still is asking me which team is ours, right? So I can't say he's a diehard baseball
Mm-hmm.
fan yet. But the other day, my wife and I were just talking, and he was there, and we mentioned them cheating. And the look on his face, he's like, the Astros are cheaters? And it was like heartbreaking, because like, yeah, they are. And
Yeah.
and that 2017 season. Now, of course we know the Yankees are prolific cheaters and the Red Sox are prolific
Yeah.
cheaters. Uh, Everybody's doing something in the fringes,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe we were doing more, maybe we were doing more egregious, but
Yeah.
everybody speeds. You only get the ticket if you get pulled over. So
Yeah.
uh,
He may be more disappointed when you tell him that they used to put a big giant hill in the middle of center field.
that's so ridiculous.
That was the most, yeah, Minute Maid Park, just for a baseball fan, it was just egregious. It was like a carnival.
It's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah,
stadium, but that
it is.
Towels Hill they put out there, I mean, watching all the bloopers of players running up that hill trying to catch
Yeah,
fly balls,
yeah.
it's much
It's
better
pretty
now that they took it out.
That's so
So
funny.
when you're down in Houston and when we can go to a ball game again, we'll have to go.
I'll take you up on it. I'm trying to see every park in America, and Houston's it hasn't been done yet. So
Oh man, it's a great park. You'll love it.
awesome.
So, well, Aaron, this has been a great time. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time and sharing it with me. I'm really excited to see what we do together with our partnership with
Mm-hmm.
Propeller, and to continue to watch where you guys go forward. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much again for joining me today.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, buddy. Talk soon.